Hello all. Welcome, and I want to talk to you about PopOS 20.04. Now, this has become a very popular distribution, and there are a load of reviews for this distro, and I hope to make mine a little bit different. I've spent about a week with this operating system so far. Prior to this, I was running Ubuntu 18.04. I was very happy with that. I like the GNOME desktop workflow. I think that among all of the desktop environments, it's the least understood. Uh, the GNOME desktop is really all about workflow. It's being efficient. It's about using shortcut keys and moving windows around, that kind of thing. Uh, Shortcut keys are just very, very important, and that's even more so the case with PopOS 20.04. But other people will talk about these kinds of things. Probably the most important thing that I want to talk about is extensions. And PopOS is a little bit strange. Right now, I've got Plank running over here, and I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna open the terminal. Super T opens the terminal, and I'm just gonna do a kill all Plank. I think that should get rid of that. All right, so this is what PopOS looks like when you start it up. So there's no dash anywhere. If I hit the super key, I'll go into, I believe this is called overview mode. Here we can see all the workspaces, and also we can see this dash. And I have not been able to figure out a way to get the dash to show up anywhere but in overview mode. So when I'm actually using a window, it doesn't show up. Now, I find this to be problematic. So I think that probably 90% or 99% of people who decide to use PopOS 20.04 are going to also want to run dash to dock, which is what I did. I went in and I went into the GNOME extensions and searched for dash to dock and installed it. And so you have to ask yourself, why is it that dash to dock isn't enabled automatically in PopOS 20.04? And I think the reason is that it crashes the system. Maybe crashes is the wrong word. Excuse me. What it does is it freezes up the system so that you can't click on anything and make anything happen. It happened over and over to me, and I would have to go over and hit the power button and shut my system down. And I realized that every time that happened, I had hit a button on dash to dock. I'd hit a button on the dock. So I got rid of dash to dock, and all of those freezes stopped happening. But I wanted to have I wanted to have a dock. I'm used to having a dock. So I went looking around and I discovered that Plank works fine. I'm going to start it from the terminal here. And there's my dock. Now, I did add this to my startup applications. If I hit the super key and type there's startup applications. And I added it right here. I hit the add button and typed in, I think it's user bin plank is the path. And you can find that easily enough. Put this in the background here. You just do a which plank. So user bin plank. Now the problem here is when you start it from the terminal, if I close this terminal, then plank is going to go away. So you really have to start it from the startup applications if you want it to work correctly. Now, oddly enough, I'm finding as I use this more and more that I need that dock less and less. It's actually very inefficient to take my hands off the keyboard and go over to the mouse and start moving around to pick something out of the dock. So first of all, I'm going to hit the super key and bring up the overview. And I'm going to type keyboard space SH, and then hit enter here. And that's going to bring up the keyboard shortcuts. And you'll see right at the top here that there are a series of launchers. And really, these are the first things that you should learn for Pop! OS. So in order to open your home folder, it's Super F. So I think of that as opening the Finder. So you can think folder or Finder as your mnemonic device. And you'll find that hitting Super F is really the most efficient way to do this. If I had, I'm going to hit Super T again, or I'm going to hit Super T, oops. Now, if you hit the Super key and you let it go, it's going to put you into that overview mode. So don't let it go. Hold the Super key down and hit the T, and you get a terminal. I'm going to start plank again. Stick it in the background here. So let me close this up here. Close a window, Super Q. Super F opens that binder. Really the quickest way to do it. Otherwise I have to come over here and look for it and find it and click on it. It really takes a lot longer to do that. So from the point of view of workflow, learning these basic launchers is going to make you much more efficient. So learn the Finder, learn the E for email, learn the T for terminal. It's going to pull up your whatever your default terminal is. Mine is Terminator. And Super B is going to bring up your default browser. So not exactly difficult to remember. B for browser, T for terminal, E for email, and F for Finder. You should be able to remember those. If you can't remember those, then please don't cross the street on your own. So once you learn this group here, this becomes far less important. Now, for other things, like let's say you want to open the PopShop, you can go into Overview by hitting the Super key and just type Pop, and there's the PopShop. This is probably still faster than using the dock. So why would I even have a dock? Well, the dock might be for things that you use occasionally, but you don't necessarily, you're not able to remember the name easily. In which case, or something you want to be able to get to very easily. But I would argue then that maybe all you need is this dock, the one that's hidden, the one that's only available within the overview. In which case, you can get rid of Plank. Maybe you don't even need this, because you always have this for things that maybe they're a little bit difficult for you to open. You don't remember the names offhand. Like I always forget how to open up my firewall configuration. I don't know. Can you just type that here? Maybe just type firewall. So yeah, maybe I don't even need to use this. I don't know, but it certainly seems to me that it's a good idea to try to get away from relying on a visual tool that requires the mouse. Now, there are a lot more keyboard shortcuts here, maybe too many. So what I'm going to suggest to you is not to use this window. Hopefully you already have those basic launchers in your head for the browser, the terminal, the email, and the Finder. Up here, there's a little icon, and this is for tiling. And this is where you can enable and disable tiling. Now it's disabled. Now it's enabled. And when you get Pop installed, tiling will be disabled. Now, if I open up a browser here with SuperGY, there we go. Now I have the browser. You'll see that it tiles. It shares the screen. And I like that. If I open up the Finder now, Super F, you'll see that it tiles that. So it always tries to make the maximum use of the screen. I have this set with fairly large gaps because I find that sometimes there's a problem with how these right side windows are tiled. But you can turn this down if you don't like the large gaps. You can set this to 0 and you'll get the maximum use of your screen. But if you look here, there's a thing here for shortcuts. And this is kind of, it's a little bit confusing to see it here because these 3 lines include 2 shortcuts: the launcher and how to navigate Windows, Super plus arrow keys. So I'm just going to click on this and open the shortcuts. And you'll see here, well, first of all, this was not tiled. Not really sure why that happened, why this wasn't tiled. Anyway, what we can see here is that we have fewer shortcuts here to learn. So the first one is the arrow keys with super. Hold the super down, hit the right arrow or the left arrow. You will see that this highlighting is switching from window to window. This highlighting, by the way, is a toggle. Show active hint. I leave it on. I think it just makes it easier to see right away which of the windows is active. So super plus the arrow will simply move you around there. Easy enough. So right now the direction keys, the up and down arrows, are just moving me within this window. However, if I hold down the super key and hit enter, we go into a different mode, at which point the arrow keys here are moving the window around, putting it in different places. If I hold down the control key and hit enter, it changes which one of these little windows is active. So now if I want to switch this, I just use the down arrow without holding down another key, and it will move this window around. Actually, that's not working. It's when I hit control like that, it's not actually, it looks as though it changed this to the active selected window, but as soon as I hit the down arrow all alone, or the up arrow, it's going to move this window. So that seems to be a bug that they'll need to work on. Anyway, the one thing that you should learn right away is the super shift will allow you to move these windows to other workspaces. So there it is. I've moved it to workspace 5. See that up here in the indicator. And because there's nothing else in workspace 5, it's giving me the whole window. So that's very helpful. Now I can use this indicator up here to move back to window 1 or window 2, but I can also hit the control super key and the down arrow, and that the up and down arrow will move me. You can see this number changes every time I do that. I move to a different workspace. And so if I want to, let's say, look at my browser, and I want to put a terminal here, if I hit Super T, it will add my terminal. So now I can do something side by side. I can look something up here, and I can work on it here. Very helpful to do that. Alt-Tab, of course, will switch you around. I've got an extension for cover flow, Alt-Tab switching. So it looks a little better. But anyway, that's the That's our keyboard shortcut pop out that we get from this little tiler. I think this used to be Gtile. When I was running Ubuntu 18.04, I used an extension called Gtile that had this same icon. It didn't work as well as this, although, as I said, this still seems to have some bugs. One final thing that you might want to know about here is the SuperGY and SuperGY. So if I open up, let's say I open up the PopShop here, and I open up the file manager. Well, we got three windows here. Let's say that I'm not happy with the fact that this window is tiled. I can hit Super and G, which will untile this window, and now I can move it around. Super and Y toggles the Super and Y will toggle the tiling. So it's, see, now if I try to move this over here, it will either switch or it will snap back. It won't allow me to get this to float. The only way to get it to float, the only ways are either to use the Super and G, or the Super and Y will get it to float. You notice that when I hit the Super and G, this took up the entire, the browser took up the entire workspace because it's still using tiling. If I bring back the terminal here, you'll see that this tiles. If I open up the Finder here, it tiles. If I hit Super and G, now I can move this around. You'll see that this took up the whole right side because it's still tiling. But this is no longer tiling. If I hit Super and Y, now this isn't tiling either. If I hit Super and Y again, now it's tiling again. This, however, is still not tiling. Let me hit Super and G again. Super and G sends it back into tiling mode. So those are all of the keys that I find helpful and think are important. Now, a few more things about this distribution. First of all, I have not purchased a system from System 76. So, let's see here. System 76 is probably the premier system integrator for Linux systems. They're like the Dell of Linux. And I'm sure that if you buy one of their systems that runs Pop! OS, that you get wonderful support from them. And they probably have a good community forum and all of that. But I'm finding, as a Pop! OS user who doesn't own a System 76 system, that there doesn't really seem to be a community. And maybe I just haven't discovered how to use it yet. But I really don't know how to get support from them. I haven't needed support from them yet. But this may be a problem. The best I can do is I can use Ask Ubuntu because this really is Ubuntu 20.04 with some bells and whistles. So it's not that terrible that I don't seem to have direct Pop! OS support. I can get most things answered through the Ubuntu forums. All right, so couple last things here. First of all, PopShop is pretty fantastic. I really like this a lot. Let me see if I can find PopShop here. Here's PopShop. Close this up. And this, I guess, is based on Elementary OS's software store or software center. And it just is it's very attractive and easy to use. When you go to install something, very often you will get choices. So let's take a look at Audacious. So here it tells you can install a deb package. A lot of times, right, here's Adobe. Adobe only gives you a FlatPack. So I don't know which one to look at here. Maybe Audacity only gives you a deb package. Some of these, however, will allow you to do either a deb package or a FlatPack, and you can choose which one you want to load. So I don't know. I'm not having any luck finding one that has both. Maybe I think OBS, if I remember correctly, OBS I think has both FlatPack or deb. So initially I was hesitant to use the FlatPacks. I thought perhaps they were what was causing all the crashing I was experiencing, but no. That was definitely the GNOME extension. And I think you'll find that if you were using GNOME extensions, lots of GNOME extensions before, if you were like me running Ubuntu, I think you're going to find that a lot of them are just no good with this new version. So regarding FlatPack, I've actually found that they're pretty good, and that often with a FlatPack you'll get a newer version than you will with the deb package. This is not saying the version number on it, is it? No. But I understand that very often that's the case, that you will get a newer version with the FlatPack than you will with the deb pack. And so I would encourage you to give them a try. If you haven't used them before, I think you'll be happy with what you find. Now, a couple of other things. I was never able to get certain games to run on Ubuntu. And I'm finding that just about everything is working flawlessly on Pop! OS. In particular, I found that Extreme Tux Racer was something that just wouldn't run anywhere. And it runs fine on this. So this is another reason why I'm really very pleased with Pop! OS 20.04. I think it's just a better operating system than I'm used to, more modern, and things that I had trouble running before, I'm not having trouble with. And finally, I want to talk briefly about TensorMan, because I don't think that it gets a lot of discussion, and it's a big deal. If you've ever tried to install Tensorflow on Linux, I think you have discovered how really difficult it is, almost impossible. And what System 76 have done with Pop! OS is included something called TensorMan, which you can think of as a kind of an alias for Docker. And what they do is they maintain Docker images. I think that's what they're called. Docker images that have TensorFlow installed with the correct drivers and all of that sort of thing, so that you can just run a simple command like this and it will install everything that's required into a container, a Docker container, and allow you to pull up a Jupyter notebook and work with TensorFlow. So that's pretty amazing. I'm just going to, it takes a while, so I'm going to just stop this. But this is important for me because I need to be able to do some work with TensorFlow, and I don't want to have to pay an outside company to run on their system, which is what I believe most people do. Most people use TensorFlow in the cloud. And so that's the last thing I want to say about Pop! OS. It really, if you're a data scientist, you probably want to run this. I had been running Lambda Labs Lambda Stack on Ubuntu, which worked flawlessly for TensorFlow. However, I found the entire system to be a bit buggy. And I think why Ubuntu 18.04 with the Lambda Stack was a bit buggy was that there were conflicts in what packages were being loaded from what PPA. So the Lambda Labs packages were replacing the Ubuntu packages. And then the Ubuntu would update and would reinstall theirs over the Lambda Labs. I think this is what was happening. And so the system was always a little bit unstable. And I think I'm finding that Pop! OS, without bad extensions, shell extensions, is pretty bulletproof, pretty stable. And so I think it's a better choice for data scientists. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that I've been able to supply you with some information that you haven't been able to get anywhere else, and I thank you very much for joining me.